So the cameras are rolling and people's batteries are running down, so I'm going to talk a little bit about growing orchids. Our orchid nursery, Woodstream Orchids in Huntingtown, Maryland, this is where we are. We're at our open house right now, and we've got a great group of people here. And what we're looking at here is a tropical lady slipper orchid that comes from Asia. And this is one of the types of orchids that we produce and grow in to a great amount here. And you know, folks are concerned about how delicate orchids are. Well, we actually breed these orchids and actually take the seed, get them to germinate and grow up into seedlings, and they're in little sterile bottles. We can actually send those to Hawaii. So this plant went to Hawaii as a little baby, and now it's come back, made that 12,000-mile round trip, and here it is in flower in front of you today. So one of the cool things about these plants is that what I like, I used to be a foliage plant grower. When I got out of college and I had my bachelor's degree in botany, it's the only job I could get, so it's like an English degree. So I ended up really liking the mottled leaf foliage on these slipper orchids, and I really got enamored by them. And so what's nice about these is when these come up in flower, they're in flower for 6 or 8 weeks or sometimes more. In fact, I had one that was in bloom at Columbus Day, and it went out of bloom about a week ago. So that's a long, long time. They use these for cut flowers over in Europe. So these are really great little plants. Each one of these is an individual. We do not know how to clone these plants. So hey, Charlie. So we actually can do a lot of different things with orchids, like the plant that this lady is holding right here. This is a beautiful plant that actually got an award from the American Orchid Society, and people were able to put this into this tissue culture lab and make 5,000 or 10,000 or 15,000. We can't do these with the slipper orchids, so every plant that you see here is a genetic individual. It's got its own individual little face, its own individual nuance. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to teach you the secret of orchid drawing. Right? This is really, really important. Okay? Let's say that you were inspired to purchase an orchid today. What I would recommend is when you get that plant home, that you take it to your kitchen sink or wherever there's a place where there's water. Turn on the faucet and let water pour through the plant. And then when you turn off the faucet, let it drain and feel how heavy it is. Then 3 or 4 days later, you pick it up. If it's light, it's time to water again. Otherwise, it's not time to water again. Because these are growing in ground up fir bark with a little bit of perlite. And if you do it by the regular touch method where we do for house plants, you touch the top of the soil and say, oh, it's dry. Well, it's always going to seem dry. I mean, I just watered these this morning, but there's other plants in here I watered yesterday that would seem bone dry. If you just touch that right there, it's dry, but I watered it yesterday. So if you do it by the weight method, you can't fail. You can grow any orchid by doing it by the weight method until you have as many as I have, which is quite a few. So that's the first thing. The second thing is people say, well, what do I feed it? Well, there's all these special orchid fertilizers you can get on the internet. Forget that stuff. Go to Safeway or Giant, get a tub of Peter's 20-20-20, the balanced fertilizer. It says on the instructions there, do it a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. Well, with orchids, they're light feeders. You do it a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. So 2 or 3 times a month, instead of running through the faucet, you actually pour the fertilizer water through it, and that's all you've got to do. The light requirements for most of the orchids we grow are an east, west, or south window with a little bit of shade. Without the shade, most of the plants we grow will be too bright in a direct south window. So that gives you a lot of leeway in where you can put these. Or you can grow them under grow lights, on plant stands like African violets, that sort of thing. So that's it as far as the light requirement. These like the same kind of temperatures that you like. These can go down into the 50s, with low 50s with no harm. They can go up into the high 80s with no harm, provided that they don't sit there and bake and they still have some water. But the last thing I'm going to talk about is repotting, because this is where everybody goes, oh no, I'm afraid to repot because the plant looks so good. Well, it turns out that when we go to repot a plant here at Woodstream Orchids, if I can find a plant with a tag that's got a date on it, we'll actually put a date when we repot on it. on the back of the tag. So we repot on a schedule rather than when we think the plant needs it. Because if the plant looks like it needs repotting, you probably waited too long. Okay, so for the slipper orchids, we repot them every 1 to 2 years. Phalaenopsis every 18 months to 2 years. The butterfly orchid, the ones you get at Lowe's and Home Depot and Safeway. And generally, if you repot orchids every 2 years, you're going to be okay. These guys love to get repotted, so you don't have to worry about them. When it gets time to repot, let us know. We can do a potting demonstration for you, and we can actually show you what type of mix that your plant would need. The only difference in the mix is the chunk size, because these guys grow on the forest floor, and so they like to be moist, more moist than some of the ones that grow up in the trees. I mean, in fact, you've got orchids like this little cattleya here, or these vandas down here. These vandas don't have no medium in whatsoever. They're just basically an air plant that we water the roots. These cattleyas like big chunky mix. If you planted them in the fine mix they're going to use for the slipper orchids, it would be too tight for them, and then the roots would suffocate. A lot of people say, oh, look at those ugly roots. Well, these ugly roots are a sign of good health. These are called aerial roots. And when these plants are in nature, they're sitting in the crotch of a tree, and these roots are crawling around the tree, and they're what's picking up the moisture that's going on. Now, when I go to repot these, I'll probably find a pot that would just be big enough for this to sit in, and then I'll get these roots wet so they become pliable, and you can bend them, and I will just bend them like spaghetti inside the pot, and then that's it. Any questions?
Because like that pot behind you, hanging up, well, behind the one, all those roots coming out, our target orchid is doing that, so that's a healthy thing.
That's a healthy thing.
So just leave it alone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Some plants, they get kind of brown if you touch the leaves. Is it sensitive like that? Is this
Yeah, not these.
Not these?
These plants will get brown leaf tips if the roots are damaged by not repotting and too much salt building up. And so when salt builds up in a pot, especially clay pots, you notice all these pots are in plastic. Plastic pots are what you want to grow in. You can always put the plastic pot with your orchid in a clay pot to display it, or a jardiniere or something like that. So anyway,
so you shouldn't put these plastic pots down into a clay pot.
you can.
You
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
It's better to do that than to pot them into a clay pot.
That's correct. That's correct. Is this somebody's plant? Any other questions?
Are you putting that on the website?
Okay, well, thanks all for coming out.